it.
And I'm seeing the confidence and the skills carry over into their other subject areas. Like if they're writing a lab report for science, I'm seeing them using what they're learning in writing class. So that's been really nice to watch. I started using EIW with my youngest, who's now 9. He was struggling a lot. He has dysgraphia and he has ADHD. So keeping him on task and getting him through the frustration of not being able to easily form the words when writing, it was just very frustrating for him. And I had tried a lot of different things, and everything I used with my older children just was not working with them. No matter what they do, they're going to be well prepared. Writing is one of the most important things for me as an educator. I want my children to be able to write very well, because if they do plan on attending a college, it's a skill they're just going to have. If they go into a trade, it's still a skill that they're going to need.
Welcome to another episode of the EIW Experience. We're here today with Penny, who is a parent, an EIW parent, and we're going to be talking about her experience with Essentials in Writing. So thank you for joining us, Penny. It's good to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. So, every parent's experience is different. And I think one of the things that's really important to me as an educator is that I'm helping homeschool parents realize that even with a curriculum like Essentials in Writing, sometimes parents use it in different ways. So they have different outcomes, different progress is made depending on the student. And so our goal here is just to have you share your experience with Essentials in Writing. So I'm going to give you a few questions, and you can just share about, what that looks like in your home. So how many kids do you have, and how many are using it, and what are their ages?
I have 6 children. 3 have already graduated, so they're not using it. The 3 that are being homeschooled at home are 9, 14, and 12.
Okay, so you have one that's probably right around that 9th grade level, and then somewhere down in the 6 or 7, and then down 3 and 4 area.
Yep,
okay.
Exactly, yes.
Yes. So do any of your students hate writing? Any of those 3?
They used to, but they don't anymore.
Yeah. So tell me about that experience. What changed and what made the difference?
I started using EIW with my youngest, who's now 9. He was struggling a lot. He has dysgraphia and he has ADHD. So keeping him on task and getting him through the frustration of not being able to easily form the words when writing, it was just very frustrating for him. And I had tried a lot of different things, and everything I used with my older children just was not working with him. So I heard about EIW and we gave it a try, and I started him out lower than his grade level because I wanted to start out with something he would be very successful with. And he just took off with it. He absolutely loved it. He started doing the lessons, and they were, short enough that he wasn't getting frustrated with it.
Yes.
I did have to make some modifications with him at first. Just simple things like we would use a whiteboard instead of the workbook. And then eventually he was able to transfer completely to using the workbook.
Wow.
So it's been just amazing to watch him.
That's great. And what was it that he hated about writing before? What was that experience like for him? Was it?
I think it was just very, very overwhelming for him. It was a lot at one time. Even with trying to use modifications, there was just so many different pieces to it all in one lesson that it just completely overwhelmed him.
Yes. I love that approach that we use at Essentials in Writing, where we actually even take a composition and break it into days. When I was in public education, that's one thing I learned that helped tremendously, was that students just don't want to do it all at one time. And if they don't want to do it, or if they're overwhelmed by it, they don't retain what they're doing. And so I would rather focus on a little piece and make sure they retain it, that they can remember it for next time, and take that approach. And plus, they thank me for it because it's not overwhelming. So
it turned out to be one of his favorite classes. He absolutely loved the sound of your voice, which helped immensely with this particular child. And yeah, it's been amazing to watch his growth.
That's wonderful. Tell me about your other two children and their experience with Essentials in Writing.
The next grade level up would be my 7th grader, and she's been using it. This is her 2nd year, and she's using Essentials in Writing and Essentials in Literature this year. So it's her first year with the literature portion of it. And she's really doing well with it also. I didn't have a lot of concerns with her. I could pretty much use anything with her and she would be fine with it, but I think she's finding it much easier because it is in smaller pieces, where she's also not getting overwhelmed with a huge amount of information all in one day.
Right.
So with her, I'm seeing her writing really grow. And she's adding different descriptive words into her sentences. And I think for her and the older child, having the writing service has been huge for us, because mom's telling you need to work on this. And it was kind of, getting confrontational. They were starting to butt heads with me.
Yes.
And no matter how positive I gave them constructive criticism, but if somebody else was telling them,
yes,
and the grader is so positive in her comments with them,
yes,
that they just really responded well to that.
That's great. I love our scoring service. And I think that it is important to have sometimes a third party interacting with our kids, because it is independent. They will take the criticism much better from someone that they're not personally vested in. And then of course we get the opportunity to not only encourage them, but to actually help them grow in their writing. So that feedback is, I would say, just as important as the curriculum itself and the way that I teach it and approach it, because they're getting that confirmation or, a recommendation for change. But it's in a good way. And
absolutely. And it's always positive, even if it's something that they could be working on, it's always stated in a positive manner.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Now tell me about your experience. So before Essentials in Writing, you obviously did writing of some, whether it was with the curriculum or without, but what has been your experience as a homeschool mom using Essentials in Writing?
A lot easier for me to use when I have multiple kids in multiple grade levels, because I'm not teaching them the lessons. They're watching the videos. So I am reinforcing, or I'm helping when they get stuck.
Yes.
Or occasionally adding to it if somebody's just quite not, where they need to be yet.
Right.
Or adding modifications and accommodations in for my youngest.
So you don't have to plan as much then.
Exactly. Yes, it's all right there in the book.
Yes.
Very helpful.
Do you follow our 34-week plan, or do you design a plan of your own?
I follow your 34-week plan.
Okay. And what made you decide to go with that?
Well, last year I didn't for my oldest son, and he ended up finishing early, but he was so frustrated because of the amount of work, which that was my fault. But this year it's going a lot easier for him.
Yes. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we built in week breaks for them so that they're not doing writing all year long. They actually have 3 or 4, maybe even 5 1-week breaks from writing, which is always good. I mean, we take breaks from work, for that reason. It rejuvenates you and re-energizes you and gives you the break that you need. So that's probably.
They were quite surprised to see that they might not have literature and writing every single day.
Yes, that's great. When it comes to, like, let's say where your kids are headed in their life, whether it be university or just, in going into the workforce, how well do you feel like using Essentials in Writing prepares them for either of those?
I feel like they'll be very well prepared no matter what they decide to do. The 3 that I have right now, I mean, some of them are quite young still, but they are all planning on going to college in different fields, and they're definitely showing strengths, in different areas already. No matter what they do, they're going to be well prepared. Writing is one of the most important things for me as an educator. I want my children to be able to write very well, because if they do plan on attending a college, it's a skill they're just going to have. If they go into a trade, it's still a skill that they're going to need.
Yes, yes. I think, of course, students don't always see this, but we as parents, we see the value in being able to write well, even if it's something as simple as a cover letter. There's a clear beginning, middle, and end. You present yourself in a very professional fashion, you're more likely to get a job. And so all of that we teach in Essentials in Writing, such as those big concepts, just general concepts, like you need a clear beginning, middle, and end. It's always that way in everything that you write. You don't want to just kind of vomit your thoughts out on the paper and hope that the reader understands it. So we help them organize it into the graphic organizers, get the content there first, and then get them to draft. But overall, even if they're not college bound, it's such a good skill to have, because it applies in emails at work. I mean, everything.
Really, it really does.
So the last question I have for you is just kind of based on your general experience. What would you say are some of the best takeaways that you have from using Essentials in Writing? Like, what are your favorite things about the program that you believe is either for your kids or for yourself? And it can be anything that you've already said, so don't worry about repeating yourself.
I believe that, the short to the point lessons are key. They're not overwhelmed with a lot of fluff. It's direct instruction. They know exactly what the topic is for that day, and then they go and practice it. And it's just been very helpful that way, rather than overwhelming them with a bunch of fluff and things that aren't necessary. It just helps them to retain what they've learned. And those graphic organizers, those have been just wonderful, especially for the very visual children. It really helps them to organize their thoughts and ideas before they start, writing sentences.
Yes, yes. That's one of the things that I realized when I started teaching in public education very quickly, was for me as a gifted writer. So it just comes naturally for me, as does music. I've always been able to play the piano. It just makes sense to me. But you put me in front of some sort of a algebraic expression, and I'm going to be lost because it doesn't come naturally to me. But I realized when I was teaching that most kids, writing does not come naturally to them. And so I couldn't just expect them to understand it the way that I did. And so, writing requires multitasking, because you have to create content in your head while putting it in an organized fashion on paper that includes grammatical elements to it. So capitalization, punctuation, correct subject verb agreement, etc., punctuation. That number of tasks at once can be so overwhelming for kids. And so that's when I decided, you know what, how about if I help them vomit, in a sense, what they want to say into these pictured boxes. First of all, it doesn't look like it's a lot of content they have to create, which is what we want. We want them to, feel like, hey, this is doable. I just fill in these boxes. This is all right. And then, of course, me modeling that for them so they see what that looks like. And then you separate that content from the actual writing, because then when you draft, you can think about capital letters because you already know what you're going to say. And it's so good to hear you say that, because it again just validates that the method does work and it's not overwhelming. Kids just don't have to feel like they struggle in writing when we present it that way. So I love it.
And I'm seeing the confidence and the skills carry over into their other subject areas. Like if they're writing a lab report for science, I'm seeing them using what they're learning in writing class. So that's been really nice to watch.
That's wonderful. Well, Penny, I'm so glad that you joined us today and took the time out of your day to share your experience with Essentials in Writing. And just a quick note to parents, if you would like to share your experience with Essentials in Writing, please reach out to our customer service team and they'll get you scheduled for a session with me to conduct the EIW Experience. And also, if you ever have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We do provide 100% free support that exists even after you purchase the products. And we have an education team that can help you with anything that you need. So please reach out to us and let us know. But thank you for watching.